Hi, welcome to Urban Insights. I'm Jayashree. I have with me Shivani Aggarwal, who's the CEO of Signature Sattva Group, and Saumay Aggarwal, who's the General Manager of the Signature Sattva Group. Thank you so much for both of you for joining us. Okay, now we're talking about the study tour to Singapore that we were all part of, right? So, what did you expect when you went there, and how long have you been with Naredko Mahi as an organization? Do you, give me a small brief?
Sure. So basically, Nared Kumahi I've been a part of, I think, for about 2.5, 3 years now. The first tour I did with them was the Vietnam study tour. And that was absolutely fantastic. We got connected with a lot of wonderful people there. So I think I had similar expectations from the Singapore trip. The good thing was Vietnam was a really packed itinerary. Singapore was a little more breathable, which I loved. Uh,
Yeah.
and Yeah, and my expectations were along those lines only from the study tour, that we get to meet a lot of great people that we can connect with, understand more of what other countries are doing, and maybe build some sort of a relationship there. Yeah.
I'd say for me, actually, I was just recently introduced to the real estate sector and Naredco especially. So this was my first interaction, let's say, officially with Naredco as a organization. So as part of the study group. So when I thought of the study tour, I didn't know how much study aspect was there going to be, because that was a big question in my mind. And I wanted to do the study aspect because I'm still young and I have a lot to learn.
Mhm.
And surprisingly, actually, I really loved the fact that there was actually a lot to learn, whether that be
Mhm.
from the different organizations, associations we met there, or just individuals who went with us. So for me, I would say I achieved my goal of learning more and studying as part of the study tour.
Uh, Tell me about your role within your organization, a little bit more about your organization as well.
Right. So Signature Sattva is a real estate company, and we do housing developments primarily. Our main focus is housing developments. So it's a family-run business, and we're the second generation of that business. And our father has a wonderful legacy of the last 15 years being the co-founder and vice chairman of Signature Global. And in 2019, they parted ways, and he said, "Okay, I want to do something different, and I want to bring a more wellness focused living into residential sector and a more premiumness into my work, because he'd been doing a lot of affordable housing work. And luckily that's when I came back to India. So I was studying in Singapore, then I was working there. And that's when I came back to India, and I was like, okay, it sounds like something new and exciting, and I would love to be a part of it from the very beginning of it. And that's when I sort of joined Signature Sattva. So my role as such is not very defined. It's everything and anything. I would say, like, marketing, be it construction, everything I had to learn really quickly. And luckily, I had a lot of good mentors teaching me that, and a lot of good people in my organization who were maybe 20 years, 30 years senior to me, really guiding me and teaching me the ropes really quickly. And I think Naredko Mahi really helped as a part of that, because you don't see a lot of women in real estate. So it was just such a piece to, like, your heart, that there are more women out there and they're going through the same things that you're going. So yeah, so that was the role in the organization, more or less.
For me, I'd say I'm the younger one out of the two of us. So I recently joined the organization. For me, I'd say similar. We look at generic everything and anything, and we try to split it between us. So whenever we can try to focus on different departments or um, different part of the same department, could be like general, let's say strategy versus daily operations. So yeah, similarly, we look at everything from marketing to operations to maybe even compliances to finance aspects, and a lot of the strategy and decision making is together with, like, let's say our father and everybody, and everybody who needs to be as a stakeholder. But let's say we can primarily focus on, let's say, the daily reporting, the operations aspect also, which is also very important in the key running, daily running.
Right. Both of you are very lucky because it's almost like working in a startup. You end up doing everything, getting your hands dirty with everything, right?
Yeah, but
It's
then
not like,
you have the guidance of a really, like,
yeah,
like
yes.
like a full vision and that experience.
Uh, when you went there, were there certain things that you were looking for that you felt? I mean, you worked, both of you have studied in Singapore, right? So Singapore per se was not a new milieu for you. but you went there looking for something that you could bring back to India. So, what were you looking for? And if you could define the key takeaways that you will be bringing back and implementing within your organization.
So I think one place where we went was the Marina Barrage, and I think this is the best sort of way to put it. Like, you live in Singapore, so you've experienced that lifestyle and the ease of living. You sort of don't know what goes on behind the scenes, and I think Marina Barrage was that experience because we went to Marina Barrage, and very honestly, we've always only gone there to like party, and we never really knew there's a full mechanism behind it and all of that. And when they took us to the experience center of Marina Barrage, showcasing all that they do, to make sure it's never flooding in Singapore. There's always water available in Singapore, and Singapore is becoming more water reliant. I was honestly in shock, because to be able to manage it with the ocean and the kind of mechanism they've built is just so surreal. And I think we were looking at their drainage system, which was also quite a big shock because I didn't even know it was possible to have such a, So they said it's a 6 meter wide diameter drainage system, which blew, and then it could fit a giraffe. So it blew my mind because not something we've seen in India and like a lot of other countries as well. So a lot of um, you definitely living there feel that ease in life, or like just a daily commute, or nothing like you're really able to focus on being productive and focus on work because uh, the city and everything is just functioning really well. And
Yeah.
I think we got to see behind the scenes of that, which was, I think, the best part of the tour for me, and like a more like a revelation.
Okay.
Uh,
So,
I'd say I'd say for me actually I didn't know what to expect when I was going for it. Like that was still in the unknown. But I'd say one of the major learnings was I'd say building on from what Shivani said is the planning aspect. Which is you when you live in Singapore, for example, we lived there for six years, it's you see the day, the ease of living, the way everything is planned so meticulously. You don't realize it when you live there, but when you think it from a infrastructure perspective, how they implement it, that's where the key learning came from me this time, which
mhm,
is when, for example, our visit to BCA that they mentioned, that they planned the entire project for 2 years, and 2 years was just meticulous planning, which is
mhm,
very inspiring for me because in India, what tends to generally happen is planning is still like, okay, quickly 6 months, 3 months planning is done, and now execution is where you stretch it out. Whereas one thing that I want to implement also would be that focusing the planning part in India, which is you plan everything to the last detail and last step, and then execution will be smoother because of that. For example, even just modeling everything in BIM, which is something I want to also implement, which is everything is in that model, whether your MEP structure, your finishes, everything. So it's like a one platform thing. So this planning aspect is something really critical, and I would want to implement that.
right. Now that both of you have very different things you have identified, by the way. Huh? Yeah, even though you're in the same organization, grew
Yeah.
up together. But I think each of those are very important. And I'd like you to spend another minute on this. Shivani, you talked about how the Marina Barrage and the fact that it prevents the island from flooding. It was a revelation. Now you live in a city where flooding is frequent and very intense, right? However, the same planners have now spent over 2.5 years trying to create a waterlogging atlas for Gurgaon. They are trying out of the I think 190 odd points that they identified, but 96, 97 have been sorted. So it's not something that cannot be done, right? It's just that your orientation towards that as developers has now been fine tuned to say that let me work with the city authorities to see that it's done better, right? So, in waterlogging, in the sites that you work in, what is it that you can do, and how can you collaborate with the city that you are developing in?
So I'll give you an example of so we have a 27-acre township in Rajasthan, Alwar. So because it's such a huge township, but again, waterlogging still seems to be an issue. And so Alwar is like a mix of both, and I think Gurgaon as well, which is there is waterlogging, but there is also like shortage of water. So it's like both things in terms of what do you have to kind of manage. And so some things of course that we do is like while planning, I think earlier we never uh, not never, but I don't think we put that much thought into it. But in the last 3 years, 4 years, it's been a lot of thought on like as many rainwater harvesting pits as you can. Uh,
Mhm.
so maybe if the norm says 4 or 5, we still like tend to gravitate towards 10 or 15. So two things it does. One is like of course helps raise the groundwater level, and second is it doesn't let waterlogging happen for too long in the township in itself. So that's something we do. But also like in terms of like Indian infrastructure, as you were mentioning, that the government has implemented a lot of measures. I think Marina Barrage, something they said that kind of struck me was it was their most expensive infrastructure project that Singapore has ever taken up. So of course, like uh, I think we're still like developing uh, a developing nation that way, and I don't think we can have that kind of a drainage system and the whole Marina Barrage ocean water system that they've built like just as of now. So I think working with the government, like a really good thing that I think. From MCG also this initiative has come, which is they've put out a separate fund for rainwater harvesting, especially towards the parks of societies, so that that works out. So I think when we're doing a new township, we're definitely way more careful now in terms of these issues that could come up, and in terms of existing infrastructure, we're trying to, I think, find good retrofit solutions, so that everybody's life becomes easier. Yeah.
Right. And somewhere going on to your this thing about planning, uh, a lot of service providers may find it difficult to change client mindsets, but you're the client, right? You're the organizer of that entire
Right.
project. So how do you ensure that this kind of, I mean, what you've learned there, the importance of planning, the taking your time to plan well so that it is meticulously laid out on the ground. How do you intend to work towards this? Of course, it's not an overnight thing, but I'd like to hear how you would like to do that.
I think that's an interesting question. So I think first is just relaying that information and learning to everybody. For example, in an organization, which is to make them realize the importance of what we're trying to implement. For example, the way that BCA convinced us in that short session, which is key, that they planned for 2 years, they modeled everything, and they used modular components to let's say essentially like Lego blocks building a building, quite literally. So, and then the way they came up with the statistics, which is they cut down their turnaround times for a bathroom to 2 days, for a literally floor in like a week, which is which is to an Indian developer just doesn't sound real. So, but when you have a live case study and the facts and the figure to back this up, I think there is a lot of scope for people, even let's say traditionally, the let's say bigger people in real estate, or the people who've been in this industry for 25, 30 years, for that scope to learn and see that this has a lot of scope. For example, even the modular aspect, when you plan everything out to the last dimension, uh, it does happen, for example, in metros and stuff, that they do this modular construction, but it hasn't come to real estate as much. So this aspect for them to realize that okay, this is possible, and for them to see it actually like first hand, essentially, for them to get the confidence that this is possible, and this will in the long term actually will be even beneficial for the project and the developer. So I'd say that would be the first steps to start beginning this.
And I'd like to say that the fact that you, as a young engineer, have picked up BIM as something that you'd like to focus attention on, even in this budget, there is a special allocation for this, right? For technology in real estate and in the infrastructure. So I think what both of you have said is very positive. Now, tell me, you've already met these people. Would you like to make this an ongoing thing? How do you intend to keep these dialogues going?
I'd say for our interaction, let's say for specifically with BCA, I'd say that obviously that's an interesting concept of keeping this interaction going. So the question comes, how do you do it? Or like how do you engage them, like both parties to be beneficiary basically? So specifically, let's say with BCA, which is the Building Construction Authority of Singapore. So one of the key points I think we that came up and discussed was training aspect, and the fact that the migrant labor comes from India. So a lot of things we discussed and we want to continue working with them is just upskilling of labor and possibly setting up institutes, let's say in India, for example,
Right.
which, let's say, because the primarily labor comes from India, or let's say if they could be certified and trained in India with BCA certification, that would save both Singapore developers cost, and also they're pre-trained, so for them also they're already pre-briefed, they're more comfortable when they arrive in Singapore. So it helps both countries. It helps India upskill its labor and maintain its standards of education for labor, as well as at the same time it helps Singapore. So things like this is something you need to find common ground with, let's say agencies or people you met, your stakeholders, for them to actively engage with you and to continue building this relationship.
Wonderful. I really wish you both the very best, and thank you so much for joining me.
Found this video useful? Please subscribe to this channel for more such videos. Do like and share with as many people as you can.